Hi guys, how are you? It was so great seeing you yesterday, and I really hope that you had an awesome day. Um, it's Tuesday, it's Cinco de Mayo. I hope you guys all enjoy a yummy taco for Taco Tuesday and Cinco de Mayo. I know I will be definitely eating some tacos. All right, so let's kind of go over our agenda so we know what we're doing today. So, as always, we start with our EQ. So, the EQ is what lasting contributions did the Shang Dynasty and the Zhou Dynasty make to China? The topics that we're going to be talking about are the decline of the Zhou in regards to the Warring Kingdoms period. And then what I'm looking for is I need you to write a paragraph. First things first, you got to open up a doc, make sure you label it properly with your name. Then I want you to answer in 5 to 6 sentences, how did these new ideas maintain control in the Zhou dynasty? Okay, and away we go. First things first, let's review a little bit just to kind of understand what was going on in China at the time. Okay, so in the beginning, we have these little settlements that are kind of popping up along the Yellow River. That's the river at the top of China. These little communities start kind of springing up along the river as they start farming, as they start trading, as they start kind of becoming a little more civilized. They start growing bigger and bigger. They start adding new contributions like a writing system, which makes them more sophisticated. They start adding social classes. They start using bronze tipped weapons, and the Shang, become very powerful. Okay, but during this time period, there's a lot of different dynasties, and as soon as they get powerful, unless they're able to maintain control, they start kind of faltering a little bit and losing their power, and then these other dynasties come in and they take over. Okay, so as the Zhou dynasty is kind of picking up speed, they take over the Shang dynasty and they end up into becoming this really big dynasty. Okay, and it was even more powerful than the Shang. And the Shang, we know, were powerful. They had bronze tip weapons, they had chariots, they had all these big things going on for it. The Zhou were even bigger than that. Okay, and not only were they powerful, but they also started becoming a little bit religious. They became monotheistic. They started worshiping Tian. They started making specific social classes. The king was at the top, the nobles were at the bottom, and then they have their peasants. And as we discussed, the peasants are the ones who are the merchants, the farmers, the traders. Basically, if you're not the king, you're not religious or related to the king in some shape or form, you basically end up in that third category of peasants. Now, how the king is able to maintain control, he uses a political system called feudalism, and we talked about that yesterday. Feudalism is basically a trade of something for something. Okay, and the king's situation, what he decided to do is, because he had endless amounts of land, he decides to trade land for loyalty. So he gives the peasants land that they can farm on or live on or basically do whatever they want to that land. And in return, the peasants have to join his army. Okay, because the king is powerful. His dynasty is powerful, and because of that, there's a lot of haters who want to take him down. And by him giving land to people who maybe can't afford it, that's a big deal. And he's able to get undying loyalty from a lot of peasants just because he's giving out land. Okay, and it worked really well during this time period. The amount of loyalty that he got during this time period, it protected him greatly. Okay, but here's the thing, all things must come to an end sometimes. And what happens is the king starts giving out so much land to some of these different types of, men living in the countryside of China, that they start becoming almost like lords of their empire. Okay, if the king is given 100 acres in the countryside, that guy has now become pretty powerful in his area. And remember, the king can't be everywhere. He can only really maintain control kind of within his area. He can't maintain control, miles and miles and miles away. And so what happens is all of these lords all become mini empires sprinkled around the dynasty. And then they start invading, because they start picking up a lot of power, they start invading the king's area. Not good. Not good at all. In fact, they start invading the land so much that they ended up killing the king. Okay, they had a goal. The goal was to take over for the Zhao. They were going to take him over, and they were going to end up kind of forming their own kingdoms. And it was really bad. Okay, you killed the king, you take over the capital then gets moved to be closer to where all these lords and their land is, and then they start ruling all of these little lands, all these acres of land that they own, as if they were mini kingdoms. So the king's out of the picture. We have 10, 12 mini kingdoms floating all around Asia, China, and they start fighting each other and fighting each other and fighting each other over and over and over again, okay? Because you now have, instead of having one king, you now have 12 different kings, okay? This was bad. This is where feudalism, which worked in the beginning, became really messy because he gave out too much land and he built all these men up to think and believe that they were mini kings because they had all this land. Okay, but their loyalty meant nothing. They were supposed to protect the king, not attack him. They were supposed to, be in the army, not be the army against the king. So that's where things start getting a little messy. And what ends up happening is another Zhao king takes over, and he starts thinking like, okay, we really need to maintain control of this. Okay, we've lost control. We've given so much land to all these other people that they now believe that they're mini kingdoms, they're kings. We need to kind of figure out a way. And what this new Zhao king decides to do is he introduces new military technology. He starts using a cavalry, which means mounted horses, so soldiers on a mounted horse. Iron tools start coming out. Remember, iron is stronger than bronze. They decided to completely get rid of feudalism because feudalism is what got them in trouble in the first place. And then what they ended up doing is, instead of having one giant kingdom, they start replacing it with little counties, kind of like what Connecticut has. We have Fairfield County, New Haven County, and then we have people that kind of are in charge of those counties. And then within those counties, we have, like mayors and stuff like that, first selectmen. Okay, so by having each person run the county instead of having one guy in charge of this vast empire, it starts spreading out the power a little bit, and people are able to maintain power of all these mini kingdoms. And it basically squashes all those mini kingdoms completely, which is awesome. On top of that, a written set of rules were put out. Okay, because before it was just kind of like, yeah, don't do that, but there's nothing written down. There was no one who was able to kind of hold them to their consequence in that case. Okay, so it was a little too late at this point though, because they kind of, their foundation of their kingdom was on feudalism, and then they kind of started getting in trouble because they were being attacked. So it's obvious why the Zhao kind of didn't last as long as they could have had they maintained control from the start. Okay, so again, what I want to go over is your classwork. Okay, I need you to write a paragraph. It's going to be 15 points, 5 to 6 sentences. I need you to open up a doc and upload it to Google Classroom. Do not share it with me. The question you're answering is, how did these new ideas maintain control in the Zhao dynasty? Okay, I hope you guys have a great day. And as always, stay in your lane, slow your roll. Bye, guys.